All right, welcome everyone. A bit of a quick jump into the show tonight. Next week we'll debut some new music or a remix. Oh, I'm getting echo here from
Sorry,
somebody.
that was me. That was me. Taking care. Taking care of. Sorry.
All right, no problem, no problem. Hey, it's the first week of Major League Soccer 2022, so we're bound to have some technical issues. Well, anyway, welcome to the show, Big D After Dark. When the lights go dim, we go live. We like to come late at night. We like to process, think about the game from this past week and the latest FC Dallas action, and come to you with news, rumors, and just banter. And of course, for those of you watching with us online from Facebook, YouTube, wherever, you can send in your comments, your questions about the team, and we will take those live. They will shape the conversation, an interactive show. All right. Of course, I'm your host at Nathan J. Hill. You can follow me. We have as well our buddy Tom at Tom FC Dallas. Some reason it's not there. It goes. Showing your handle there, and also our buddy Ismael Belcora at Belcora Isma on Twitter, and Jose Carmona at El Chico Carmona. Follow us,
Hello.
send us your questions. Don't harass us, but you can razz us a little bit if you think we're out of line.
You can harass. You can harass. Brad.
And just a reminder, we will be putting this in podcast form. We'll be catching up with all our preseason shows and everything this week. It's just been a busy time for me. So, hey, this is Podcast Life. So let's get right into it. FC Dallas opened the weekend at home, welcoming Toronto FC. Toronto, of course, has their new head coach, Bob Bradley, father of Michael Bradley. And, coming over from LAFC, a team that's in the midst of change and flux, but so is FC Dallas. FC Dallas, of course, has plenty of new faces. It's been an exciting offseason. So we had a lot of expectation. Excitement's been building. It was a cold and chilly one there in Frisco. And FC Dallas came away with just a draw at home. Not the greatest result. But the team looked good in spots, but still managed to give up a kind of annoying goal that you kind of wish they would figure out how to stop. But we saw a debut of a new goalkeeper, new left back. So some, and of course, the new star left winger, Paul Arriola, who contributed to the first goal of the season for FC Dallas. So let's just get started with reactions to the game. I know some of you went. Maybe you even want to tell us a little bit about the stadium experience and the food. But, we can get into a lot of that maybe later. But let's just start out with the game. What was something positive you took away, and what was something that you hope the team works on? Tommy, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. So I think kind of wasn't what I expected. It was an improvement from last year, for sure. It also was expected that I would show up and see a team that, was still not the team that we're going to be seeing the whole year. It's going to evolve into the team that we're going to see. And, we didn't have Velasco. We didn't have Hara. We didn't have Sean, for example. So, I thought the coach, Nico, did a great job of coaching what he had. I found it interesting that, when he needed help in the midfield, he didn't bring on Faku, but he brought on the rookie. And I thought the rookie, for his role, just coming into that time of the game, did a great job. Everyone was black, the media was all saying Ariella was the player of the game. But I thought he wasn't sharp in the beginning. His first touch was a pass that was nonchalant, that was kicked back to the other team, and it was, didn't have any. It was just it was a bad pass. And then his second touch was a cross that he, volleyed in and it went over the goal. It didn't go down. And there were a couple times where Jesus was going to the goal, and it was 3-on-2, 2-on-1, and Jesus was wide open, and he took an extra touch with the ball and didn't get him. And I'm not saying Arriola had a bad game, but I guarantee you Arriola himself would probably tell you, I can do better. I thought Jesus had an excellent game, even though he didn't really score. He did score a goal, but it was called back because of a previous offside. But Jesus came back and hold up play was very, very good. and he would distribute the ball to the wings, and then he would run back in the middle. And that happened on the first goal of the game where Jesus came back and passed it to Paxton. Paxton hit Ariel, and when Areola crossed it, Jesus was right back in the middle. Now it went across to the other side, and O'Brien scored. But I thought Jesus had a good game.
All right. Ishmael, and it says you muted yourself. Heads up. So there we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think they played pretty good for a first game. I think it not only is it important to know that this is a first game under a first coach, but also that you're playing a Bradley team. And when you play a Bradley team, you deal with overloads. You deal with a lot of pressing. It's even though Toronto looked shaky a lot, they had a lot of veteran experience that knows how to play that kind of system. And when you press certain players, like it caused a lot of issues for FC Dallas throughout the game. And I think they improved on it on the second half, but it was those kinds of issues that just made this look like a very even game. Both teams were had very specific attacking styles and did not know how to defend the other team's attacking styles. So it was a very fun game to watch in the freezing cold. I thought of all the players on the field, the most impressive one was probably Paxton. We haven't seen this kind of Paxton in basically 2 years. This kind of like what we know he can do. Him and Cervenia also did very well. I think it was kind of astounding how important they were to Nico's style. I don't know if they can do this for 34 games. I don't really think so. It's their depth is concerning, and again, the fact that Siki was the sub,
right,
tells a lot. Like there needs to be more depth there. Besides them two, it's very good to see Hedges at what I think is his 100%. I didn't think he did a bad play in the entire game. Even though the goal was off of his header, it wasn't his fault. He actually got in front of a cross. Like he looked like prime Hedges again, which is great because that was in doubt as well. So I think for the first game of the season, it was pretty good.
Good. We'll come back to that rookie sub because I do think that asks some questions, but which may be answered as the season goes on. But all right, Jose, you.
I was actually very happy with what I saw for the most part. I mean, let's face it, this preseason was really short, really early, and I think a lot of teams are still really very much in preseason form. In all honesty, I think a lot of teams aren't full strength. We already know that we had 3 key reserves that were not. Well, 2 key reserves and a potential starter that were not available. And mind you, we still got 3 holes in the roster, so you're looking at about 6 players that potentially that are not available yet. And mind you, that's everybody across the league is going through that. So honestly, this first 4 weeks, it's gonna feel like an extended playoff where we're gonna see uneven play. And as far as like Areola, he's still learning to play with his teammates. You're gonna have to expect that from him, from Farfan and O'Brien having to learn to play on the left side more often, and Jesus having to learn to stay up higher and not drop so deep like we saw him do so much in preseason. So I was actually overall I was satisfied. I wish they would have gotten. I think the 3 points were there that we had, but you have to expect that at some point this team is going to basically have a miscommunication or someone wasn't gonna stay with their attacker, and that's what happened. It's just one mistake and they get punished. And let's face it, hey, that weather was very Canadian-like, eh? So it's not that wasn't much of home field advantage that Dallas normally employs. We see them again, 5 months from now, and they got to play 90-degree weather. We'll see how peppy they are then. But overall, I was satisfied. I like what I saw from most of the newcomers. I think the keeper looked great, by the way. I was very impressed by him. And we've seen this before. We've seen where a starter gets injured and the guy that comes in and takes his minutes never relinquishes that starting spot. And you have to worry about the longer that Jimmy sits, the more and more this Pies has a chance to make the job his and convince Dallas that they should buy him by the summer. So overall, I'm satisfied. I don't know what to make of the substitutions because we don't know Nico's substitution style, and we know he's shorthanded. So I'm going to reserve judgment on that until we see more.
Well, and I think that's all my comments. Like I think the subs were good and bad. They were good in the sense that we're getting some of these young guys out.
I just want to point out that there was a formation change to a 4-4-2 at the end, and the subs had a lot to do with that.
Okay.
Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, Siki ended up playing a second striker.
Yes.
And I feel like Siki, I mean, in a way, it's never a bad thing to get a young player out there, especially if they've impressed in preseason, they've earned their roster spot, they've earned a contract. Yeah, let's start getting them minutes so that they can develop, that they can get their feet under them and can play a role come down the season. And of course, I think the options were limited. They're lacking some depth in some areas and because of some injuries and things. But hey, so I just say credit to Siki. I'm sure he's had a strong preseason. But on the other hand, too, it's not the greatest thing. I think the greatest ideal situation for a head coach, you'd love to have maybe some other options there to bring in to help push the game. But credit, and of course El Medcar, I'm hoping he has a great season. I mean, I think he had a good season with North Texas, breaking out. But again, he gets out there. I mean, I think the thing is you're pushing for that second goal. You're really pushing for someone to come in and change the game, and that's a lot of weight on a rookie's shoulders, on a young player's shoulders to go easily do that. So we'll see. We had a couple of comments here that so Ben, our buddy Ben Funch says I was impressed with Farfan. So there's another vote, and then our buddy Todd Chatterley says more like Emma Pooh Masi.
No Tumasi slander, guys. You know me.
Yeah. I want to echo real quick. I agree with what Ismael said. I think that Paxton, Farfan, Savania were outstanding. I thought Savania had a great game.
Well, I think that there's a lot of positive things to take from this team. I mean, Cirillo getting the start,
and he was solid. He was solid. I mean, he wasn't outstanding, but he was solid, which is what we want to see from that Sixers. He was doing the right things. Yes, he's not dominant, and he wasn't perfect, but it's the first game of the season, and it's something he can build on, and maybe we see Cirillo finally make that big step. And he wasn't removed for Quignon either, which is a good sign.
Yeah, I didn't think he had a bad game as well. I just thought Farfan and Paxton and Savania and the goalkeeper just stood out of having really good games.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think Cirillo had not like you said, not an outstanding game, but I think it was perfect in the sense that I don't think he made any mistakes, and that was one of the issues with Cirillo early on, is that he was he could pass really well, he barely missed a pass, but the pass that he misses was a really bad mistake, or he would keep the ball too long and then they'd intercept and go straight at the center backs, and he didn't do that. Every he didn't do an outstanding tackle like Farfan, or do a really good save like Pace did on that almost headed goal, but he just didn't do anything wrong, which is I think the first time we've ever seen Cirillo do that, not to make a false step.
no boneheaded plays like he occasionally does.
Well, Todd has come back and says not slander. Tomasi is actually bad as a right back. I mean, this kind of goal for the team to give up. I mean, credit to Toronto. It was expertly. It was like a counterattack kind of goal. And really, when you look at and I went back and watched it again because I was just wanting to refresh myself, and FC Dallas had numbers. They had numbers to defend. That Martinez
it was a little bit lucky. A little bit lucky.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, it came off Hedges' head, kind of bounced unlucky. It's one of those goals that happens. And credit to Toronto for being there, to take advantage. Maybe you want a little bit more from Farfan to watch that far post run to stay in there. I'm sure that's something to work on. Maybe you want a little more from Tomasi to defend on the outside. But yeah, it's kind of hard to. It's hard to blame one person alone for that, which could have, if Hedges had a little bit more on it, maybe he redirects it toward the center. Maybe he's able to clear it in some other way. But yeah, it's a tough one to give up. Drew Epperly, our editor on BigDSoccer.com, he kind of pointed out that Martinez maybe was and remains a question mark for this team. You like his veteran presence, his left foot, but he's also not the speedster guy, and so maybe Tafari gets back into the equation at some point if Martinez doesn't quite lock down the spot. But it's also just too early. It's too early to be swapping in players right and left as you're trying to get this team to gel. Although Alan Velasco, I think, is a big question mark of how soon he gets game time, which hopefully is this coming weekend. I hope. Yeah, I mean, did you all have any questions about the defense otherwise?
I noticed the change. Go ahead, Ismael. I'll wait.
Yeah. I mean, Martinez is an interesting case because his flaws haven't really improved from last season, but his strengths are still his strengths. Like, there were many, Toronto dominated possession because that's how Bradley plays. And there were moments in the game where FC Dallas could not do anything in the attack for 10 minutes. And then Martinez would get on the ball, just left-winged, beautiful ball right into Paul's feet. And then there's an attack right there. And that'd get FC Dallas out of the rut, and they can start developing play. I mean, Martinez is also, I think, the focal leader of the on the field because, we know Hedges, he's not the most vocal person. Martinez is the guy that after a player gets chopped by a bad tackle, he's right in that player's face. That's the kind of guy that he is, and that's what he's been doing through preseason as well. That's something different from last year. Again, I don't think the defense played terribly. If you want to blame someone for the goal, which I don't think you should, it would be Farfan because he leaves Osorio too wide open on the back post. But it's the deflection. I don't think they thought it was going that way. So, and it's again first game, so I'm not going to really place anyone's blame on that. Even Tomasi, even if he was out of position, that's what happens. Center back shift to mark wingers when a right back gets beat or a left back gets beat. That happens all the time. It's not just Tomasi. So, I mean, the defense played really well against what I thought was a pretty decent set of wingers for Toronto. They had a 17-year-old out there who was playing really well out wide, and they still were able to, the striker did nothing all game. Their striker, literally, he didn't have a single shot. He did nothing. And I think that's a testament that even this early on, the defense has improved a lot from last year. This is much better than it was last year.
Yeah, I was going to say tactically, I noticed an improvement is that they all stayed back in their 4 back line. None of them went so hard that left 2 in the back, and we got numbers. Never in the game did Toronto have numbers on us. I don't recall not one time that it was 4-on-1 or 3-on-1 like we saw with Lucci last year. We always kept the shake in the back. And what I saw on that goal from Toronto, we were all kind of settled in the back. Everybody was in the back there, and they crossed it to the side, and he beat Tomasi for the cross. But it was deflected over Hedges and Martinez to the guy on the other side, and he got it. It was kind of a fluke play. I mean, they were there, and maybe the marking could have been better. I remember Steve Data say, "Hey, the marking let up," but the defense, I thought the coaching and just the strategy was great. I mean, I think, and I know we're talking defense, but what I noticed the biggest change was the offense. If we didn't see those Acosta shots from midfield. We didn't see shots that were like, "Let me take a 3-pointer." You didn't see that. It was all team oriented, passing, get the ball into the box, and most of the shots came from within the 18. I think we left a couple goals in the field. I remember one time after a reflection, it came back to Obion in the box, and all he had to do was relax, keep it low and away from the keeper. He shot it hands width at the keeper, easy to save. I mean, he was point blank, and as I mentioned earlier, Jesus had 2 runs where Areola failed to get him the ball. If he got them the ball with just a one touch, it would have been 1-on-1 with the keeper. That's 3 goals opportunities. And then you factor in, well, we didn't have Velasco. So, when Velasco shows up, that's going to be another weapon. So, but going back to the defense, I thought the strategy and the coaching and just the way it was just unlucky that they gave up that other goal. I don't have any complaints on the defense.
And I want to point out that Toronto was overloading to Tomas's side a lot. They really went after him. And Dallas handled those overloads quite well. The positioning is good. You're seeing the positioning. You're seeing them. Mind you, they're learning. They tweaked the defense from last season, and considering some of the minor changes that coaching staff made, you had to be happy with the overall performance of the defense. They answered the bell, and Toronto, like you said, it happens. You get a bad bounce. Let's not forget that field was very slippery, very, very awkward there at the end. It had a real effect on the players also. So you also got to keep that in mind with the conditions. And I just want to add one more thing. I've had time to think about Nico's, use of the bench. And I have to say that I'm very excited that despite the fact that his 3 players he was missing were all attacking players, by the way, that when he went to his bench at the end of the game, the fact that he didn't bring in Facundo or Tafari, it shows you that he was going for the win. He brought in players. I know we're all like, hey, but think about it. Tsiki, an attacker. Ahmedkar, an attacker. Nanu, an attacker. He brought all these guys that were going to push for the 3 points. And you have to be excited about that. When he has better options in the attack, later on, this is going to be this has potential to be a really fun season as long as the team doesn't.
Well,
if I may real quick, because I want to get this one out, but right before they scored, I'm not picking on Areola, but what happened was we had a counterattack, and it was going to be another good chance for a goal, and it was Ariana and Ferreira making the counter, and Areola had a heavy touch and gave the ball away, and right after that happened, they scored. He wasn't even pressured. He just was like such in a hurry to go downfield. He hit the ball way ahead of him, and he lost it. Go back and look at the replay. And that turnover, the goal came right after that. Yeah.
You also have to keep in mind, though, these are new teammates, and was it a or was it somebody supposed to be there? We don't know, because let's face it, some of these guys, some of these mistakes are, and we saw it several times where he was yelling at people. We were talking about Martinez being vocal, but you also saw Areola literally out there on the spot coaching some of those players, telling them, hey, you should have gone this way and that way, and lecturing them and telling them what they did wrong real time, which is something we didn't see last year. And so, yes, some of that could just be Areola, but some of it, I think, is also just miscommunications from the players. We're still doing good to play together.
I'm not picking on him. I guess my point was I was trying to make is that I don't believe that Areola makes this mistake very often. And it was just odd because, that really should have been a shot on our side, and it was just unlucky touch. And I don't think he's going to do that very much. And it was just odd. If you take that turnover away, then I don't think they score. So it's kind of where I was going at. But yeah.
Well, a couple more comments coming at us, and Javier Marroquin asks, "Is Shabal Shun currently injured? He didn't make the 18, and I think that is the word. Yeah. And of course,
same thing with Hara.
And with Hara, right? So those are two intriguing players, and you imagine Shun, if he had not been injured, probably would have been the first off the bench potentially. But maybe. But we're all hoping he has a breakout season this year. Yeah.
And if Hara's healthy, it's him up top, not Tiki. So
yeah, and he would have been a good presence there to grind something out. Ben comes back and says, he felt the subs were 10 minutes too late. I mean, this will be something we just are going to learn about Nico. In his style and how he adjusts to the league, and of course he has experience in the league, but it's hard. I think it's one of the things as a coach, you know who's available and how many minutes they can give you without their legs, it's just a lot. It's hard. It's hard to make the things. Although we remember Lucci was often way late with his subs.
I want to point out that, like I said, this is like an extended preseason. So I guarantee you that there's some players that he pulled that he would rather not have pulled, like Areola. I think going forward, the expectancy is that he'll go the 90 minutes. But, some of these guys are basically not 90-minute ready. It's just a reality. And I think a lot of that, playing them as long as possible, has something to do with that. I really do need these guys to get as many minutes as possible because I need to get these guys ready to go 90 minutes if they have to. And I think that had a lot to do with that. So I had no problem with the late substitution. Like I said, Areola, for example, is a player that I think he would have absolutely loved to have out there for 90 minutes. But the condition isn't there.
And the Paul Areola conversation, he didn't get a full really preseason with the team. He was away on national team duty, came in a little bit later, and so he's one of these guys. I think we're just going to see him get better. And he was good. I mean, it was exciting to see his presence. Definitely an upgrade over Fafa Pico.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, definitely stronger than what Paxson provided on the wing last season. So it was an instant improvement, and hopefully it's only going to get better. I think we can imagine it will. And so let's turn. The big signing. Finally, there were a lot of delays with the visa and things, but Alan Velasco is in Dallas. There was I think Ruben Luna posted. Ruben Luna, former FC Dallas homegrown, is maybe serving as the real estate partner of the team. I don't know, but it's helped Velasco look at houses or real estate or whatever and start to get settled. And so, I imagine we're not going to see him start quite away, but he has been working out. He's come from season of action, so it shouldn't take too long for him to begin to break in and make some time and action on the field. So we're really excited about that. I mean, what's y'all's gut about that? Do you see this going to be? I mean, first of all, who does he start over if he outright wins the job? Which you have to expect he will. The team spent a lot of cash on this guy. Does Obrian sit? In favor of Velasco? And if Obrian keeps scoring goals, does that make it a more difficult job? Difficult ask. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, Obrian off the bench would have helped a lot yesterday. I mean, not this Saturday. He would have that would have been a pretty decent game changer. I mean, that's why I'm saying this game is very difficult to quantify anything for, because our first attacking sub wasn't Elmedkar, it was Nanu. Nanu came in for Areola as a right winger, and I know it was only 5-10 minutes at him at right wing, but quick analysis, I don't think he's a right winger. Just from a little glance, I think he can play the position, but that's not his position. So I mean, Obrian off the bench is a tool that we didn't have on Saturday. But if Velasco starts, which he will, you start your $7 million player, and your $2 million international U.S. international player on the wings. And once the game starts to die down and the center back's legs get a little heavy, you bring in Obrian, and he just runs at them, probably shoots once and like misses it completely, and then probably drags it across goal to Jesus, and maybe he scores it. So like, uh, Velasco's probably not going to start against the Revs next week, especially since it's a turf and you do not want any chance of injury. You don't want to put him through 70 minutes, but I could see, especially if he gets like 2 or 3 training sessions in, I could see him coming off the bench and maybe pushing for like an equalizer, maybe a winner, whatever the case is next Saturday. Because again, we're playing a Revs team that is very good, but is also looking at CCL in a couple days later. So next week should be fun to see how Velasco.
Yeah, good point. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to some Revs talk here. I think that sounds good. I think as a head coach, you want to have a lot of options and you want to have a lot of competition. So maybe Obrian is going to feel that a little bit and is going to try to make a statement early to make life a little more difficult for Nico as he puts out that starting 11 each week.
Well, I mean,
I just want to add that having 3 starting quality wingers is not a bad, thing to have.
But don't forget about Sean.
Especially, but I think Sean in this case is going to be a sub. He's going to get minutes, but I don't think he unseats any of those guys. He's like he'll be a super sub off the bench, but I think Obrian will rotate with Velasco and Ariola when they feel like resting these guys, I still even if Obrian loses his starting job to Velasco, I still think he's going to get over 20 starts this season, because you have to rest Ariola. You have to. Don't forget, we're going to have people missing for international call-ups and stuff like that. So the minutes will be there. I think it's a good issue to have. It's a good problem to have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing that he's been training with India. Are you finished, Jose? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add that it's been half an hour and no one's mentioned how amazing Cervenia looked, handling all the corner kicks.
I said it. I said it.
Yeah, I said it,
but I think you gotta point out how wonderful it is compared to, Acosta.
Yeah, and he was on the roster last year. I thought Cervenia had a really good
one of those
game.
goals, by the way, one of those near goals was when he hit Martinez in the head, clean shot, and he misdirected it. By the way.
No, I absolutely agree. So I was going to say is that Velasco's been training with Independiente, so he's not coming out over here out of shape. He's been playing games with them actually not too long ago. So depending on his picking up of the tactics, we could see him start. I think we will see him play as a sub at minimum, but he possibly could start. O'Brien had a up and down game. Now he did have the goal, but other than that, I thought his passes was not that great, and he was offside at times. He looked lazy, getting staying onside. I think that he's he kind of maybe regressed a little bit, but I would not surprise me to have Velasco start.
Obrian?
Yeah,
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, he was offside quite a few times. Yeah,
he was offside like 4 times.
Yeah.
But I don't think
even the people sitting around me, I'm taking. That's not my call. The person that was sitting on the left of me and the right of me at the game, they were like, "Hey, he's lazy," and they were yelling at me. So
I think that has something to do with the fact that he's playing on the left wing when he's a right wing. That's another thing. It's communication with the players around you and whatnot, and that's like I said. I don't think it's regression. I think it's preseason form.
One observation I take away from the game is Nanu was very fast and big compared to Tomasi in the right back, and he looked like a burst of energy. And if it's really the best player, I would say that he's probably our best right back on the team. And but I don't have a problem with Tomasi also starting here and there. But I'm telling you, this guy looked big and fast, and it's unfortunate he missed that shot because he had a
but
wide open
but,
shot.
but
Yeah.
can he defend? I mean, we know he's big and he's fast. We still need to see him play a full game on defense and see how his defensive chops are.
Well, Ben says, Nanu is right back. Velasco starts at home and Obrian on the road, which isn't a terrible equation maybe to think about, but I imagine if Velasco just, lights the league on fire, he'll start on some key road games as well. But I do agree, like, if there's one thing to know about Major League Soccer, is those turf fields, you've got to be selective and thoughtful because
and maybe Obrian starts games that are played on turf, so that either Arriola or Velasco can don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I know everyone's picking on Tomasi because he got beat once or twice, but also Hedges got beat too on that one play. I've seen enough of Tomasi last year to know that he's solid with the ball, and he's serviceable at right back for sure. And I'm not necessarily, going to be like anti-Tomasi because I think he's a good player.
And most importantly, he still has room to grow. I mean,
absolutely.
People forget that Dallas has like the 5th or 6th youngest team in the league, mind you. And people, I hate people that look at players and go, "Oh God, he's terrible. He should never play." These are players. These are young players who aren't even in their prime yet. They haven't. Tuamasi is not the player he's going to be, and that applies to half the starters out there. Can only get better. Hopefully it's this season. Hopefully it's not, till the end of the season. But Tuamasi, okay, yes, he can do better, but he's still growing. He's still learning. That goes for, not for Martinez or Hedges and stuff. Like those are guys are veterans. But look at our midfield: Cerrillo, Cervenia, Paxton. You got Tuamasi. Even Farfan. Even Jesus. They're young kids still, and they're only going to improve. The players you see out there right now are only going to get better, and hopefully, the sooner they get better this season, I think we're in for a wild ride, and hopefully this team surprises a lot of the pundits.
Well, one thing I was really impressed with, and it's just watching Nico on the sidelines. He's not there yelling at them, telling what to do. And I watched the broadcast. They even commented as well. And I kind of agree with what they said. Like how much can players take in anyway when you yell them, "Hey, go here, go there"? They're playing a game, right? Crowds out there. How much do they really take in when the coach is yelling? But I love the fact that Nico. It seems like he's kind of guy that coaches like he coaches them during the week. And then when the game starts, they should know where to go. And he's kind of watching it, and he wasn't yelling out, but when a player would come over, he'd whisper, give him little, ideas what to do or tactics. I like that from a coach. I don't believe in, yelling, go here, go there. That's what you do at practice, there's sometimes you need to do it, but I like his professionalism on the sidelines. It just, totally different from Lucci.
Well, let's shift over to a couple last topics before we close out. And, of course, we'll close out with a little prediction thinking ahead to this coming weekend as FC Dallas travels to play the Rebs. But first, there is a rumor out there of another player on the way, another loan option to buy, another defender, a center back potentially. He might be kind of pegged for maybe some North Texas time initially, or maybe not. Maybe he is a competitor for a spot. So, Jose, what can you tell us about this player?
So, this is Ecuador. He's from Barcelona SC. I know people have pointed out that he hasn't really played much for Barcelona SC, but last year was his first year with the senior roster. And don't forget that their season is split into Apertura and a Clausura, which is basically two halves of the seasons. He played in 10 matches in the second half of the season. And based off of that, his value skyrocketed, and he was actually called into the Ecuador national team. Now, he only saw like 8 minutes, so he got capped by their national team. But he was on their bench for like 5 other games, so he was training with the Ecuador national team that entire time, and they did make sure that they cap him. This is, I'm telling you right now, the average value of a player in all of the MLS Next Pro, and I'll throw out there USL League One and NISA and all those leagues. Those guys, if you look at their value, it's around 200,000 max. I mean, the average is even lower than that. This guy's market value is like over 500,000, and his clause says, according to his team, it's a 15-game clause, and if he plays 15 games for FC Dallas, then they're forced to buy him. It triggers the sale. This is a player that Dallas is bringing in, and mind you, people are complaining about his size. He's 5'11", but the rumor is that he's very athletic, very fast, and physical for his age. So I can't wait to see this kid because there is some hype to him, and let's face it, Dallas needs fast, athletic defenders. Can you imagine? If you had let's say a back three. Let's say they played three in the back, and you put Tafari in the middle, and you put Farfan on the left, and then this kid can play on the right. I mean, all of a sudden you've got that fast, athletic back three that Lucci wishes he had last year. So I'm not trying to get too excited, but I'm just saying this kid is being brought in to compete for minutes with the senior team. And I'm not saying he won't get minutes in North Texas, but you know how that goes. There's certain players that if they go down there and dominate for one game, Dallas doesn't send them down there no more.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm excited because I hear a lot of good things about him, and his, like I said, there was a press conference. His team basically said he's going to Dallas. I don't know when they gave a full press conference because, believe it or not, this is a massive deal for their team. This will be like a record sale for them if it goes through. And,
so
they're all.
So you feel like he can play on the right? Is it as a center back on the right, or is he?
I honestly, I've only seen highlights from him from the regular season play, and I saw him play both, pretty much all four backline positions. I saw him playing at right back, at left back, and versatility is what this kid supposedly brings, and we got to see it. I mean, we've seen players that come here like Vargas last year, who came in and looked great, and we're all excited, and then they don't take to the league.
So this is Joshua Quinones.
Yes, Quinones, and like I said, he's very much like Shun. We had got Shun, and let's face it, Shun didn't look great his first couple of games. They played him a little bit out of position. They just gave him minutes, and we were all like, this kid, And then once he settled in, boom, we're all like, wow, this guy is great. So this is a young player with a ton of potential, and we'll have to see when he comes into camp and see how he takes to the team. And mind you, that applies for Velasco too. I know we're all excited about him, but this kid, Velasco, we don't know. He's got to go through culture shock, travel shock. Getting used to
Jose, you mentioned he was 5'11", so I checked up Zach Lloyd, who used to play in this back line for FC Dallas. He was 5'9".
Thank you for mentioning that. Because I was going to actually mention that we haven't had a player like Zach Lloyd on this roster in a long time. I mean, since he left, I don't think we ever replaced that really fast guy that
put out fires.
Basically put out fires.
Yeah.
We've seen that from
and they may want to put him on outside. Who knows how they want to use him, right? So
we know Tafari can do that, and we know Bartlett was signed because they think he can do that, though he hasn't proven he can. So clearly, this team is looking for a specific style of player. They don't want the big lumbering 6'4" center back of old. They're saying, hey, this league is spending money on attackers. We're having to deal with more versatile, faster, more creative players, and we need to have a backline that reflects that. And the Tafari, Bartlett, and this kid they're bringing in, they're all fast, athletic players, and I'm here for it. I mean, let's see if the transition and these guys pay off.
Well, I would say
I'm
this: I
excited.
like the fact that they're doing the loans, loan to buy, and they're bringing
Exactly.
in youth. They're bringing in youth versus someone that used to be a good player. Like we used, when I first moved here, like 10 years ago, first started going to games, we used to sign these players that were good, and they're slow, and like you can see that they were talented, but I like the youth and the upside, and if they don't work out, you get someone else to come in.
And on that side, I want to point out that a lot of LAFC fans were pointing out that Farfan started and Hollingshead did not. And I don't know. I'm not trying to make anything of that, but from their point of view, they're like, okay, we gave up a promising young player and we brought in a veteran, and this guy is supposed to
Yeah,
start. He's supposed to be one of the best left backs, and why is he not starting? So I'm just saying, you're hearing the comments, and that's what we would be doing if they brought in a 29, 30-year-old player that's supposed to be good, and then we'll be questioning, well, is he on his downside? Why did we get him? I'd
I was
rather
very
go
happy
with a
with the
young player.
trade. I was very happy with that trade. I think I like Hollingshead, but I felt like he was over the hill. He was going on the downslope. He's still a good player, but I think he doesn't have a lot left in him. And they got
I
youth,
just think it was.
and they got a good
I don't.
defensive player.
I don't think he was on the going on his downside. I just think I agree that this new system that we're putting in is not a fit for him, and bravo for the coaching staff to basically notice that right away and say, hey, okay, this is what we're going to do. And there's certain players that don't fit what we want to do. Lucci tried to put that square peg in a round hole, and it didn't work. And I think it's good to see Nico basically saying, hey, okay, you guys love Hollingshead. He's a great
Yeah,
leader, and all this intangibles that he brings, and but he doesn't fit what we're doing. So let's gamble on a younger player that fits our system that we're trying to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why you saw that defense look solid. They don't look spectacular, but you saw their positioning was right. Everything was, you know, that's one of the reasons because they brought in a player that fits that system.
right. You didn't see
And
Farfan or Tomasi get in the box. They stayed back. Hollingshead would get in the
they were
box, right?
disciplined. They were disciplined,
Exactly.
and
Okay.
their system called for that. The system called for, hey, we're only gonna send one of you guys forward. You guys gotta know when one can go. And where before Lucci would send both down, and if they weren't fast enough to get back, and that number 6 wasn't doing his job, we'd get burned.
Yeah, exactly. I like it.
Well, let's close up the show. I know. I think next week we'll reserve some time to talk about North Texas, and their roster's kind of starting to come into shape, and they had a friendly after the game, but we'll touch upon that. But let's just talk about this coming weekend, New England Revolution, and kind of what should we expect from FC Dallas. Yeah, this sounds like we've already said. This could be a winnable game since New England is in the CCL. So that means they'll be probably rotating some guys and putting some, keeping some legs fresh. And FC Dallas will potentially have Velasco available to them, maybe some other players if they get healthy. So what are we expecting for this team? What's your prediction for this coming weekend? Jose, we'll start with you.
Well, I know that New England has the whole CCL thing coming up, but if I remember correctly, their games got postponed. You know, so I don't know. Do they have a CCL match that week?
They have a CCL match after hours on Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Okay, so yeah, it could affect, but we don't know. We don't know how. It'll come down to how New England decides to rotate. I mean, are they going to start their, one B team, with some starters and their top reserves, and at home on their turf, they're still got to be the favorites. We don't have no clue how Nico is going to handle games on the road. We saw that Lucci struggled mightily to get this team to perform on the road. Just he never quite figured it out, and we honestly don't know what to expect from Nico. So honestly, I'd be happy with a draw. I think if you can go to New England and get a draw out of there, I don't care what kind of team they start. If you can come out of there with New England from 1 point, I would be happy with a result like that. And honestly, I'm going to be watching for the little things. Is the defense going to hold up on the road? Are there going to be mistakes? Or how are they going to handle the weather? It's the little things. I still think this team, like I said, is pretty much in a late preseason mode, and I think New England is too. Although I believe their preseason started a little bit earlier. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the little things and seeing what Nico does and seeing how this team responds to him on the road. And I'm hopeful that they come out of there with a point. And honestly, if it's tied and they're pushing for the 3 points at the end of the game, that's all I really want to see from my team. I want a team that's basically has a shot to get the win on the road, which is something we rarely saw with Lucci's team, believe it or not. I mean, we're on the road, we were just like, God,
Yeah.
they were just trying to grind out a point. If that, I want to see that change that we saw at home carry to the road.
All right, Ismael, how about you?
It was kind of interesting, right? So Turner is actually injured right now. So this weekend against Portland, New England played their backup, Earl Edwards Jr., and he had the game of his life, like probably played the best game he's ever played. Revs were going to win that game until the younger Chara brother decided to do a bicycle kick and score goal of the week. So it would be crazy to say, yeah, we should beat the Supporter Shield champions from last year on their turf after they basically beat Portland last week if it weren't for like a magnificent goal. I understand the concept of this is still kind of preseason, but what we need to see really isn't really a victory or a draw or a loss, but we need to see improvement, right? So the spots where we know there are issues, like there's some couple of issues that we've seen in the game that we played against Toronto, it has to change. Or we have to start to see some change. I think there's also a case that we could exploit the wings a lot more in this game because New England plays a narrow diamond midfield. And when the diamond expands and the midfielders go out wide, then the midfield is very open. So just to see some tactical awareness of how the Revs play, and the other thing is to make sure we do not get any injuries on the turf field. Again, that's why even if Velasco can start, I don't think you should start him. It's not worth the risk to be like, hey, this is your first turf field. This is where we want you to play your first MLS game against the best team from last year. That just seems like a recipe for a disaster. So just for them to go out, fight hard, maybe get a goal, maybe keep the goals conceded to a minimum, maybe get a 1-1 draw. That's really 1-1 draw with no injuries is really the best case scenario. Unless the Revs get a red card, then I think we should win.
All right. Tom?
Well, I think New England pretty much is the same team as what I'm reading from last year. They did add Altidore, and they have Leggett added to their roster. But the question is, how much will these guys play with the CCL game? Who knows? But I think because of the CCL game, that it's going to give a little, extra advantage to Dallas because you can't, play both games and be at your best for both. You're going to have to, it's going to take away from one or the other. I think FC Dallas goes over there and plays a good game. I think now that we have some film on Nico, so will New England, and we'll see how they attack FC Dallas, see if they follow the strategy that Toronto did and attack on the right wing, assuming that Tomasi's there. But what if it's Nanu? You know, I think the other thing is to see, I think we really won't know Nico until we're like 5-6 games into the season. Like, what if he comes out and it's Tafari out there, and we see, well, he's changing the lineups, is he going to be that kind of coach? What we saw on Saturday is he kept that lineup in there for 70 minutes. He didn't sub until late in the game. So that leads me to believe that he's going to go with the same lineup. But Velasco is the wild card. I would not be surprised to have Velasco start or Nanu start, or even Tafari. I mean, I think Tafari had a good season last year. Regardless, bottom line, FC Dallas is going to go over there and play a solid game tactically, and we're going to see more passes in the box and goal opportunities. They missed some goal. They left some goals on the field last week, and I'm hoping that this week they don't. So, I expect goals. So I'm looking forward to the game.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm with you all. A draw, of course, would be great. I mean, I would love a game where Jesus just breaks open and puts a couple away and really pushes the Revs and what Arena can do. But I know Bruce Arena, he's been around the block quite a few times. He's gonna know how to approach this game and get the most out of his players, and they do have some depth there. And so even if they don't go with all starters, they're going to be a capable team. So it's going to be a tough one. It'll be a first for some of these guys like Nanu and Velasco to see kind of what travel is going to be different in this league than what they maybe are used to. That'll be just about as far as the team will go, I think, over the course of a season. Maybe only Vancouver a little bit farther or something, but it's going to be an interesting one to see how the team adjusts. And I do think it's having these two Eastern Conference teams right off the bat, it does put a little. You want points, you want results, but if you come away with just 1 point from these first two games, it's not the end of the world. You have plenty of ground to make up against Western Conference.
Worth noting, we're going to Boston next week. It's going to be very cold next week. It should be interesting to see. And Altidore isn't the starting striker, so Altidore probably will play in this game. So,
there you go.
Since Buxa is probably going to be the other striker, Buxa is the tall one. Buxa is going to pair up with Hedges. Then we're going to have an Altidore versus Martinez battle in the game, which that just seems very interesting. Like it could be breaking tackles or fights or something. That should be fun.
Well, good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Yeah, Tommy, one last word. Yeah,
I was going to say, if you remember, if it's anything to do similar to what Greg Burkhalter did in the last round of World Cup qualifiers, what he did, he changed the lineup every game. So if it's the mentality, we could see a different lineup in New England. Just came to my mind.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to see. We're figuring it out, and we're along for the ride as we welcome Coach Nico Estevez to lead this team. It's a new season. Maybe it didn't start with the 3 points that we wanted, but it's going to be a long ride, and hopefully this team will figure it out as they go. And we'll be right here every Monday night. Health permitting and all that stuff, internet permitting, we'll be here on Monday nights to talk about it, to break down. Appreciate everyone's comments about the team. Hope you'll be back next Monday, and we'll be posting links of where to find the podcast as we get that going, so you can listen even if you miss the game. So thanks Tommy. Thanks, Ismael.
Thank
you,
Jose.
Everybody. It was great. All right. Good night, everybody.